Welcome everybody to Book Carnival. My name's Anne, and tonight we're going to be talking with Paula Munier about her new book, The Wedding Plot. There's the best I can do on that. This is one of my favorite series. It's like going home to family. And you just make it so real, Paula, and the animals are a delight just by being animals and doing what they do best. This one has far more characters than you've done recently. You've got everybody together here.
Yes.
And it's really exciting and it's all coming together very well. Tell me, why did you go this direction on this one?
Well, I set the books in the various seasons, right? Because they're set in New England, and New England has very distinct seasons. And the last two books had been sort of fall and winter and spring. And my editor said to me, no more snow, no more snow, no more ice. So I said, okay, well, we're coming right up for the next season to be June, to be summer. So I'll set it in early summer. And June in Vermont, where the books are set, means weddings. Vermont is a big destination wedding state. They have weddings in every places, but outside in fields, in barns, and also in very swank resorts. So I thought,
that's a beautiful place.
Yeah,
Vermont is just gorgeous.
Yes, it's really beautiful. So that was fun. I thought, well, this is fun. I can have a wedding, and weddings, of course, everybody comes to the wedding, right? Both families and all of Mercy's relatives, my heroine's relatives. I could have them all come, including some we hadn't met before. So that was great fun. Plus, weddings, lots of melodrama in weddings, right? So that was fun to write about too.
Well, you certainly have a large group, and I haven't had any trouble keeping track of them. They're very distinct personalities.
Good.
The Colonel is something else again.
Oh, yes, he is. I'll tell you about him.
Yes. So how did you choose to develop your characters?
Well, I already had a small cast of supporting characters. I knew I had Mercy's mother and her father and her brother, but I hadn't really developed, and her grandmother, of course, who's the one getting married. It's the grandmother's getting married, and her mother, who's a very, very ambitious, chic, perfectionistic type personality, nothing like Mercy, right? She's put in charge of running the wedding for her mother. She's going to give her mother, Mercy's grandmother, the wedding to end all weddings. And so she picks this place called the Ladies Slipper Inn, which is a composite of two big fancy resorts in Vermont, southern Vermont. The Woodstock Inn, which is an old, beautiful place, and Twin Farms, which is a very luxe boutique hotel that has been ranked the best hotel in the world by Forbes. It's a really swank place. So I got to make up my own version and combine them and make this great destination wedding. And of course, her mother, Grace, planning the wedding, becomes the bridezilla, right? She wants it to be perfect, perfect, perfect. And it's one of these long weddings where it's 4 days and everybody comes and it's a big event and lots of activities. And right before the wedding is due to start, the spa director goes missing, which is a very big problem for Grace because she has planned a special spa day for all the wedding guests. So she goes to Mercy and says, go find the spa director. And that's how the book starts. She has to go find the spa director.
And it takes off from there. It doesn't stop after that. What I like is it's a family that agrees to disagree, but they're so gentlemanly about it.
Yes.
The elders are really giving orders, but they put it in such a way that it is supposed to be a request.
Right. Yes. Well, the Colonel in the book is based on my father, who's a colonel, who was a colonel. Yes. And he died right as I was beginning the book.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes. And so I was sort of stymied by grief. I just couldn't find my way to the page, and I had a deadline And I thought, I started writing about my dad, sort of process that grief. And so I ended up just writing him into the book. And he was very much like that. You know, he was an officer and a gentleman, but you did what he told you to do. You know, it was no question. Everybody did, even the dogs. You know, so so yes, he was a fun character to write. It was a way of honoring my dad. But yes, Mercy's family is, you know, they're polite, but they are very fierce, all of them in their own way.
Yeah. And does the groom know what he's getting into?
Does a groom ever know what he's getting into?
Well,
Or the
this
bride,
one,
for that matter.
that's true. This groom really is low key for a good portion of the book.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, the groom, you know, he's a large animal vet, and Mercy's grandmother Patience is also a vet.
Mhm.
He's from Quebec, and they've been dating for years, and so finally they decide to get married. But I think it's interesting because, you know, all weddings are not so much a bringing together of a couple as they are bringing together of two families, and there are inevitable conflicts there and secrets there. And when you get all those family members together, you know, like you say, there's friction, not just between the two families, but within each family. And secrets are inevitably revealed because conflicts arise. And so that's kind of the fun of writing a wedding, because weddings can be so melodramatic.
They can indeed. And the dogs are along with all of this and involved. I love the way you write about the animals because it's not them doing so much, but it's their mannerisms, their reaction to the people they encounter, their loyalty to Mercy. It's just very interesting. And we were talking beforehand, and we'll let everybody in on it, that we were talking about your household of pets. And you added, I can't pronounce it, but you've added a new member.
Yes, during the pandemic, we rescued a Malinois, which is a Belgian Shepherd, just like Elvis. And, you know, if you ask Malinois people, they'll tell you that the Malinois is a sleeker, smarter German Shepherd. And so that's what they're like, but they're really wonderful. And although I've had dogs all my life, and we already had two big dogs, one of whom was the inspiration for Susie Bear, the Newfoundland Retriever search and rescue dog in the books.
I'm in love with her.
Yeah. Well, she's based on our bear, and he is just like Susie Bear, the happiest dog in the world and the friendliest dog in the world, and a real contrast to Elvis, the Malinois, who's, you know, the bomb sniffing dog, very smart, very dignified, very loyal, very fierce, really, really great dog. And now we got one. And so Blondie, her name is Blondie, she's very much like Elvis. And so it's been a great treat to have her in addition to our little pack here now, right?
Well, and the cat. We can't forget the cat.
Oh, yes, of course. Ursula, the cat. We always have a cat, and I always have cats in the books too, because, you know, I don't think life is complete without cats and dogs. And of course, I have goats in this book, and I would really like a goat someday. But
yes, that was the other thing that I found amusing. This was where the reception was going to be, right? This inn that had this strange name.
Right, yeah, the Lady Slipper Inn. Yes, because, you know, in June, in this part of southern Vermont, there's a bog called Eshqua Bog, where these rare wild orchids bloom. And they're called lady slippers. And so I thought, you know, that will be the bride's favorite flower, and she will want to get married in this bog at the peak blooming of the rare showy lady slippers. So that was fun too. And we actually, you know, during the pandemic, I could go there, right? Because it was outside. So I took my mother and we drove to Vermont and we checked out the showy lady slippers, and they are beautiful, just beautiful.
You had to know how to describe them perfectly. That was a good excuse for a trip.
Yes, exactly. And they are quite rare. And of course, you know, they're losing their habitat and climate change and all that. So there are fewer of them, but they are so beautiful. And I encourage you, if you're ever in Vermont in June, go see the showy lady slippers.
I would love to come back. I wasn't there in June and couldn't do what I wanted to do all of the time. So I've always been anxious to go back. I have a question for you. When I was reading through this, it caught my eye. Let's see if I can find it. This character, Daniel Feinberg,
Mhm.
is in the scene that I noted. And he managed to get rid of Uncle Hugo and Father Bernard because he wanted to talk to the couple by himself. But you were talking about how he was dressed and how distinguished he looked. And you said dressed in a lightweight summer bespoke suit in a rich shade of taupe. I've never heard the phrase bespoke.
Oh, interesting. No, well, that's, like a super custom suit.
Okay.
So, hand tailored London kind of thing,
Probably why I haven't heard of it. But
well, he's Vermont's only billionaire. So he dresses really well.
yeah. Well, I knew that's what it was meaning, but I had never heard the phrase before. So I like that.
Yeah.
So what happens to all these wonderful people? They're here for this joyful event. And so what is going to make plans go awry?
Well, when she goes off looking for the spa director, what she finds instead is a stranger skewered by a pitchfork in the barn. And that sort of sets off this, sort of wave of unfortunate incidents that plagued the wedding. And ultimately, Mercy and her love interest, Troy, who's the local game warden, and their dogs have to save the bride and the groom to make sure the wedding can actually happen till death do us part, because it gets pretty exciting and pretty dangerous all through the book. Everybody's at risk.
You blended that very well, because it starts off very cozy-ish with not too much friction, and Mercy's a little annoyed being called upon to be the leading the relaxation exercises and doing all of this, because she just wants to veg out with her boyfriend and avoid her mother as much as possible.
Right.
For good reason. But you do lead into the tension really builds. It does very well in this book. I really enjoyed that.
Oh, thank you. Well, you try to keep readers reading, right? That's
Absolutely.
The rule. Yeah. Keep them reading. So I like to really keep the readers reading and keep lots of things happening. And I like to have a lot of balls in the air, because those are the kind of books I like to read. I try to write the kind of mysteries that I like to read.
Well, I agree. I don't write at all, but I find that I have certain types of books for certain moods and things that are going on or not going on. And certain books help me through those periods. So it makes a big difference. You mentioned that you had been a reporter before you took up writing for a living like this. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I started off as a reporter when I was young, and I was a reporter for newspapers and magazines and an editor. And then I was working for a magazine that had a book division as well. And so I started, I was a managing editor, and I did the book series as well as the magazine. And I parlayed that into a job as a managing editor for a book publisher. And I was so excited because I realized that first day at the book publisher that they were going to pay me to talk about books all day. Because as much as I love being a reporter, to me, my little 8-year-old bookworm self, a real writer wrote books.
Okay. And,
worked on books. So for many years, I was an acquisitions editor as well as a nonfiction writer. And then eventually I wrote a book on plot and for Writer's Digest books. And I thought, okay, you always wanted to be a mystery writer. You always thought you couldn't plot a mystery because mysteries are, more technically difficult to plot than a straightforward. Okay. And I thought, now you have no excuse, because if you can write a book on plot, you should be able to plot a mystery. Otherwise, shame on you, right? Yeah. So I wrote my first mystery, and I just love writing mystery. I always wanted to be a mystery writer, and in the second act of my life, I get to be one. So it's pretty sweet.
I think it is. I think everybody should get to be whatever they want it to be. It's very satisfying whenever it happens. So
Exactly.
what was your very first book?
My very first book was a little, back in these, a long time ago. So I was working as a reporter and an editor for a magazine. And remember the Sweet Valley High and Babysitter's Club? There were
yes.
little novellas for girls. That was before you had young adult. You
Right.
just had kids' books and adult books, right? And you had these little novellas, these little series, Sweet Valley High and Babysitter's Club. And I had written a novel that never went anywhere, but the editor remembered the novel. And when she moved to this franchiser it was an organization that created these series like Sweet Valley High and the Babysitter's Club for big publishers. They came up with these ideas, and they had a new idea for a series, and they asked me to write one. And the editor remembered that I had written about teenagers at the beginning of the novel, which never sold, that first novel. But that just goes to show you that, nothing is ever wasted, right? When you're a writer, you never know what will lead you to success. You never know, it never is the way you think it's going to happen. It never happens that way. And so I wrote that novel. It was called Emerald's Desire, and it was about a 16-year-old girl who goes off to Ireland to find her birth mother, and along the way she meets Mr. Teenage Right and finds a Celtic treasure. This cute little book.
It sounds delightful.
Yeah, well, it was a long time ago, although it's still available on ebook. I can't believe it. But really, all these years later. But that book came out the same month I became an acquisitions editor for a book publisher. So I spent the next 20 years helping other writers get published, right?
Yes.
As an acquisitions editor, acquiring books for the publisher. And it's kind of like being the midwife instead of the mother. You help give birth to all these books. And it was great fun. I loved it. But eventually, when I left that business and became an agent, I had more time to write my own books. So that was a good transition.
Oh, and a happy one.
Yes.
For all of us, for you. And I know I enjoy the books very much. And your series is going well. I think you should be very pleased with how it's doing.
Yes, I am very pleased, and working on book 5 now. So yes, right now it's a tough time. So many series are discontinued that I feel particularly lucky to still be writing this series and to know I'm going to write at least books 5 and 6. So
no, I think that's something to jump up and down with joy about. Yes, because not everyone gets to do that. And it gives you a feeling of stability.
Yes.
You can go ahead and plan ahead. You can be jumping ahead and decide that you want such and such in the 6th book as opposed to doing it in the 5th book and so on. Carol wants to know, what type of books did you help get published?
Oh, I did all kinds of books. So I did business books, I did cookbooks, I did a lot of mind, body, spirit. I worked for one publisher, and they used to say that every list had to have sex, angels, and yoga on it. So I did a lot of sex, angels, and yoga books. But I did all kinds of books. My friend Dawn is here with me, and she worked with me at one of these houses, and she's an editor for Scholastic. Is it now, Dawn? Scholastic? Yeah. So yes, I met a lot of wonderful people in publishing, and I had a great time. And I also did some fiction too. We did a lot of licensed fiction with, Marvel and all those kinds of, licensed fiction, like I did a Wonder Woman novel and that kind of stuff, because I worked for a publisher that was the first publisher to do strategy guides for video games when video games were first becoming popular. So we did licensed fiction, we did the strategy guides, we did, I did a whole bunch of dog training books. I did all kinds of, cookbooks, all kinds of nonfiction, and also some fiction. So it was a great job. I mean, it couldn't have been more fun, but I did it for 20 years and I was ready to move on to something else.
That was enough. And so when did your first book come out in this series that you've been formally writing?
Well, this series, the first book came out in 2018.
Okay. So it's a whole different way of living now that you focus on one series, right? And one thing.
It is a whole day work. It's kind of wonderful, really, because I just live in this world. I live in Mercy's world in my head most of the time. And it also coincided with our move to rural New Hampshire. So that was been great too, because there's nothing like a walk in the woods to help you plot a novel.
Yes. And with your dogs.
Yes, exactly, with the dog.
So it sounds like Mercy going for a walk to, clear her head.
Exactly. We're marching in the woods too, but she goes faster.
Everybody goes faster as far as I'm concerned these days.
Yeah.
And I'll share with people that when Paula and I were talking before, the community that she lives in now has one stoplight. And what else did you say? One stoplight?
It has a library, a historical society, a grocery, a filling station / local 7-Eleven, a place called the Barn Store, which is where you can buy, local produce and dog food and guns. Really weird place. And a veterinarian. Yeah, and a veterinarian. Yeah. So we have no doctors, no cops, but we have a vet and a library, which is really all you need.
Exactly. No, I was telling her it sounded wonderful. No freeways, none of that stuff going on. Almost sounds too good. No wonder you can plot such happy books. I mean, these people are, for the most part, are happy.
Yes, yes. I like to read books that make me feel better about being human. And so I want to write books that make me feel better about being human too.
Well, I'm glad you do. I've enjoyed every one of them. And this one, I think it's even more special because of the extended family. It's been fun. I know they won't appear all the time, although some I assume may come back occasionally. But it's like going to a cousin's wedding is how I feel when I'm reading it. I'm meeting people that I've heard about, but I haven't met yet, that kind of thing. I just, and of course the mystery is good. You're always really good about that. It works in, and it doesn't seem forced in any way. It just fits. So it's just a great book. I have to compliment you on that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It means a lot coming from you, that's for sure.
Oh, well, we need more things like this, I think, because it's intriguing. The dogs are dogs, but they're well trained. They do what they're supposed to do. They're alert. I love how much they watch Mercy, how they're so in tune to what, like when she's dealing with the colonel. Right. They can tell when it's not quite a friendly conversation.
Well, we've really found that to be true, especially with Blondie, the Malinois. She has the most incredible focus of any dog we have ever had. She does not miss anything, and she's just really tuned into you, even more so than the other dogs. It's really remarkable to watch. You can see why Malinois make such great working dogs, whether it's drug sniffing dogs or bomb sniffing dogs. They're just really, really right there.
And when you added her to the family, was there any problems with the other two? Did they all immediately bond?
Well, they all had their own crates for a while at night, but she was a puppy.
Oh, okay.
And Bear and Bliss were not puppies. And so, they really laid down the law. They were the grown-ups and she was the puppy. And that, so she was the bottom of the totem pole. She was the least of the pack. Now that she's older and smarter and bigger, just as big as they are, the dynamic is a little different, but still, they keep her in line, just like older siblings would, right?
I love it. So what do we have to look forward to next?
Well, I'm writing the next book now. It's book 5. The working title is Home at Night, and it takes place at Halloween.
Oh.
And so far, I have poets and witches and ghosts and a big old house based on a real big old house. And all the fun, the woods are creepy in the fall.
Yes, there's more spooky things out there, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I haven't done a Halloween book yet, so that's a lot of fun.
And when do you think that will be out?
It's supposed to be out around Halloween next year.
Okay, so we have to plan on, when do you think you'll ever be visiting? I'd love to have you for a visit.
Well, as soon as it's safe to keep going around. I mean, hopefully by next year we can really make the tour, because I do come to California. It's we have family here, so we always come here.
Okay.
And absolutely, I will come.
Oh, I'd love that. Many authors, once they get this far into a series, sometimes want to go out and do a standalone, just to be doing something different. Has that occurred to you at all, or have you thought about it?
Well, standalones are great. I love standalones, but as a reader, give me a series any day. I love series because I like going back and spending more time with the characters I've fallen in love with. And so I love writing a series for that reason. I mean, standalones are very popular right now. Mm-hmm. And, there's a lot of people writing standalones in addition to series, and maybe I would, but for now, I'm perfectly happy to spend time with Mercy and Elvis every year. A book a year is about all I can manage with, I have a day job and lots of other things to do. So I think for now, I will stick to the series, but I also, again, prefer them when I'm reading as well.
Yes. Well, I agree with you, because it's like they become part of the family after a while.
Right.
No matter what kind of a character they are, mm-hmm. They're familiar and they feel like you've come home again, or you're visiting the same place again.
I would like to write more nonfiction. I wrote a book called Happier Every Day a couple of years ago, and that was fun. And I'm doing this program at the University of New Hampshire starting in the fall, where I will be trained to be a natural resources steward for the state of New Hampshire. So I'll learn all about the flora and the fauna of the state. And I think that will be great fun. So I love to write nature. I would love to write more about nature, but in a nonfiction mm-hmm. format. So I'm hoping that will inspire me. I'll get to learn all kinds of great stuff about New England and the wilderness there.
Well, I think that's amazing and that you're taking the time to do that.
Oh, I'm so excited. We get to trim the trails and, count the trees and the birds, and I don't even know what else, but it'll be great fun.
Have you always been an outdoors person?
Well, my father always took me on walks in the woods with the dogs. He was a hunter, and he taught me to shoot with a bow and arrow. He taught me to shoot with a rifle. He taught me, I was an only child and he was a colonel. So I learned to do everything the boys learned to do. He took me fishing and horseback riding and, all that stuff. And I loved it. So.
Well, that's fortunate.
Yeah.
It just sounds ideal. And it gives you a lot of background for your books. That type of life would do that. Folks, how about some questions here? I've been doing all the talking. We'll see if any pop up here. We'll give them a chance to come up and type something, and we may open it up. So you've got your next book planned, plus doing this class that you're talking about, and possibly writing some nonfiction dealing with the flora and fauna and the things that you're going to learn about.
Absolutely.
That's exciting.
It is.
And you did this, you talked about this teenage book that you did before, or, the sort of in between age. Any thoughts on that? I mean, it's still in print, so it must have been very good.
Well, I don't know about that, but it was fun to write. And of course I now have, my oldest grandchild is now 13. So it's fun when you have grandchildren, because you get to, it's like having children, you relive those stages of life, only, a little farther down the road. So in a new context, because society has changed. And so, but certain things remain the same, right? Teenagers are still teenagers.
Yes.
And so whenever I see my grandchildren, I'm reminded, it just brings me right back there, and they are fun to write about. And my youngest one asked me when I was going to write children, more children into the books. So I promised I would do that. So I have to find a way.
Oh, well, I have confidence that you do. it says here, do you have a series that you have read that you would recommend to readers?
Oh, sure. If you haven't read any of Anne Cleeve's,
Oh,
she writes the Shetland series and the Vera series and the Matthew Venn series.
she's wonderful. Yes.
She is wonderful. And if you like what I really wanted to do, so what I wanted to do was I wanted to write the kind of mystery that I love to read. And my favorites are the his and her mysteries. And like Julia Spencer Fleming, she writes a series set in upstate New York, and the heroine is an Episcopal priest and the hero is the local police chief. So
Right.
they're his and her mysteries, and I love those. And I, as an agent, I always tell people, you have to be able to say what kind of book it is and how yours is different, because that's what publishing wants. They want insert bestseller here, only different. And you have to be able to say what the difference is, right? When you pitch a book.
Of course.
And so I knew my agent would ask me, okay, pitch this book for me. And I knew I wanted to be Julia Spencer Fleming, but I couldn't be Julia Spencer Fleming because there's only one and she's spectacular. But I thought I can be Julia Spencer Fleming with dogs.
Okay.
That's what I set out to do. Yeah. And so I love Julia Spencer Fleming. If you haven't read her series, it's Claire Ferguson series. And also Ellie Griffiths, she writes another his and her.
You're naming all of our favorites.
Yes, Ruth Galloway. I love Ruth Galloway series.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah.
The only problem I have with Julia is she doesn't write fast enough. I always want another book.
No, she doesn't. I just saw her. We're part of a group, the Stone Cold Crime Writers. It's me and Julia and Sarah Stewart Taylor, who's wonderful. Now there's a new series set in Ireland, which is great.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, The Drowning Sea is her new book. It's
Sarah
great.
Stewart Taylor.
Sarah Stewart Taylor. Yeah, you should have her on. She's fabulous.
Okay.
Yeah, they're beautifully written books. And we've got the American in Ireland. She writes very evocatively about Ireland. Very beautiful.
And one of my favorite places. So that would be wonderful.
Yes, she's great. And Archer Mayer, of course.
Yes. Oh, yes.
He's
iconic. He's an iconic part of the world.
He's a legend. So we have the five of us that get together, and it's great fun. He's great. And so I read so many series. Of course, we love Louise Penny, right? Inspector Gamache and Deborah Crombie. I love hers as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm jealous that the five of you get to spend time together. I mean, I would like to just be sitting in the back of the room just listening.
Well, we had a great time. It was the first time because we all are Minotaur authors. And so we formed this little group, but we hadn't been able to be all together in the same place because of the pandemic. And so it was our first time, all of us together, and we went out to dinner. We had the best time. It was great. Yes, even I felt the same way. It's like, I want to be a fly on the wall. So I was so excited that I was there in that company. It was really exciting.
Yes, that would have been fun. And if it was anything like when we were first getting together at the carnival, you laughed more than anything. It was such a relief and a release to be with people that you enjoyed being with and to talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone else wants to know, what is your typical writing day? That's Carol.
Oh, I know I'm supposed to be very good and tell you that I get up at dawn and write for and I don't do any of those things I'm supposed to do. So, but because I have a day job, right? And so I do my day job, and then I tend to write early in the morning, late at night.
Okay.
When I was young, I read this fabulous essay. It was a collection of essays called The Writer on Her Work. And I had young children at the time, and I was trying to write. And one of the women in this essay collection said that she wrote at night when her children were sleeping because I am not needed in their dreams.
Oh,
and I love that. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah,
I love that. And so, yeah, so even now, because, my mother is with us, so I'm not needed in her dreams. So I write at night, late at night often.
Oh, well, we love that you do, because the books, I can't tell you how much enjoyment I get out of them. I always look forward to the next one. I don't see any other questions. I've kind of run out. Is there anything we should have talked about that we missed?
Well, let's see. I mean, one thing I do like about the books is what I try to do, and all of you, if you love to read mysteries, my favorite mystery writer of all time is probably Colin Dexter, who wrote Morse.
Yes.
Inspector Morse. And he has these very particular kinds of clues. So if you watch the original Morse, or if you watch Endeavor, which is, Morse as a young man, or Inspector Lewis, all of those series kind of follow the Colin Dexter model, and they have very good clues. So my biggest challenge with every book is to come up with a great clue.
Well, I think you've been doing a great job of that too. So.
Oh, well, thank you. But that's the biggest challenge, the clues.
And Barbara says, love Morris in capital letters here.
Oh, yes.
He's not to be beat, let's face it.
No, he's just the best. He really is.
And very unique.
Yeah, and I loved Inspector McGray too, in Georges Simenon. I loved it. Very, there were short novels, but very psychologically based, very good. Great, again, another great detective. I'm a sucker for a good sleuth, whether it's an amateur sleuth or a professional.
I agree with you. And those books were very small, but they were intense. You had a lot of stories in there.
He was great. They once hung him in a cage in a French department store, and he wrote a novel in 12 days.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a character. He would write anywhere. He would just check himself into a hotel and stay 2 weeks and walk out with a book when he was done. So.
Oh my goodness. That's a hard thing to live up to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone wants to know, is it easier to write the people parts or the animal parts?
Oh, well, the thing about having animals in your books is you have to remember, because you're kind of envisioning it as if this were a movie. I'm seeing it in my mind, like on a screen. And I have to remember where all the people are, but I also have to remember where are the dogs, and what are the dogs doing in every scene. I love writing about the dogs. And when I get stuck, I just write a scene with the dog because it's fun, and I have this 3 dogs around me all the time, giving me lots of inspiration to remind me, how dogs interplay with you over the course of a day. Mm-hmm. And so I love writing about the dogs, and I love writing about the people too. The people are fun because they're real people to me. So it's spending time with real people and real dogs. So.
Well, and in your own world, which I think is just ideal.
Yes. Yeah.
This has been so much fun. Let's hope for a very healthy next year and next book, that we can, you can travel and we can have you out there. And if all else fails, like we were saying before anybody came, we're all looking forward to VoucherCon.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
in San Diego.
Yes. Gearing up for it.
Yes.
I want to thank you so much for your time. I know it's hard after a long working day, and then to be bright and shiny and happy and bubbly and do this, but you've done a great job for us tonight. Really, thank you very much. I'm going to put it on gallery view so everybody can wave goodbye to you. Thank you again so much for being with us.
Well, thank you. And thank you all for coming. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, we'll do it again. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And away we go.